We saw earlier how Srila Prabhupada, after he left the Gaudiya Sangha, he was alone in Vrindavan, staying in different places. Alone in Delhi, not alone in Vrindavan, alone in Delhi, staying at different places until he finally moved back to Vrindavan. But in that period, from 1955 of November of 1955 till September, October of 1956, he had released 12 issues of Back to Godhead. And then he moved to Vrindavan. And well, actually, he moved to Vrindavan somewhere in September. And somewhere in September, October, and he still, after moving to Vrindavan, still he continued to publish Back to Godhead until the November issue. And then there were no more funds to go on. Mr. Jain said he could not afford to sponsor. So then the Back to Godhead stopped. And then, if you recollect, Acharya Prabhakar came to stay with Srila Prabhupada in Vamshi Gopal temple in Vrindavan. Prabhupada moved to Vrindavan somewhere in October, and then October, November. And then in the beginning of 1957, Srila Prabhupada went to Mumbai. And Mumbai, he was given a role of honorary professor at Bharatiya Vidya Bhavan. So now he had a place where he could preach, but he still found it confining, So Mumbai, he came back to Vrindavan, and while in Vrindavan, he again planned to revive the League of Devotees and establish a worldwide preaching movement. And the best place to go for that would be Kanpur, since it was an industrialized city, and he thought of getting industrialists from Kanpur to sponsor for Back to Godhead, and also he thought of what is called a constitutional membership of League of Devotees. So with these ideas in my ear, subscriber membership also, but he wanted to, he was primarily interested in the constitutional membership program. And so he went to Kanpur. So that's where we are now. Abai preached actively in Kanpur, staying in various homes and canvassing for league members. As the guest of the Anandeshwar Satsang Mandal, he lectured regularly at the popular Parmat bathing ghat on the Ganges. He especially made acquaintances among industrialists and educators, often sitting and conversing with them for hours, and many were impressed by his dedication and his soft-spoken talks. But his collections were small. When he offered the wealthy magnates his constitutional membership, they usually opted in favor of the 2 rupees a year subscriber membership. He collected a few letters of appreciation, but after 2 months he left. So he leaves Kanpur after 2 months, and he goes back to Vrindavan. After some months in Vrindavan, Abai decided to go back to Bombay. So from Bombay, he went to Vrindavan, from Vrindavan to Kanpur, Kanpur back to Vrindavan, and from Vrindavan again to Mumbai. And actually this period of going to Kanpur and going back to Vrindavan and then again going back to Mumbai, it's almost a time span of 1 year. So after some months in Vrindavan, Abai decided to go back to Bombay and preach. In Bombay, he quickly broke off his association with the stifling Bharatiya Vidya Bhavan and moved out of the faculty residence there. Staying a week at a time in the homes of various patrons, he tried to generate interest in his missionary activities. When a friend of Acharya Prabhakar arranged for Abai to address Sunday evening crowds at a Bombay beach, Abai accepted. Following already established custom, he sat on a cushion, and the people gathered from 500 to 1,000, sitting and listening as he loudly spoke the philosophy of Bhagavad Gita. Abai spoke for several nights, and there were other lecture opportunities also. One week he spoke several times at a Bombay Vishnu temple. But Abai wanted to do more than deliver occasional lectures to uncommitted audiences. The conviction is growing within him that he should preach outside India. Now, if you notice here, Satsuru Maharaj brings up a very important point. But Abai wanted to do more than deliver occasional lectures to uncommitted audiences. That's what happens when we don't have an organization. So Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur organized an institution. He got involved with organized preaching to attract committed audiences, because occasional lectures can only attract uncommitted audiences. The conviction is growing within him that he should preach outside India. The idea, of course, had been there for some time. The idea, of course, had been there for some time. He had expressed it in his prospectus for the League of Devotees before gatherings at the Radha Memorial in Jhansi. During his meeting at the Birla Mandir in Delhi and many other occasions, informally he had expressed it hundreds of times to acquaintances, and he had even woven his dream throughout his writings. He was ready to travel anywhere if he could fulfill Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati's order to preach in English. In India, the English-speaking population was small, so Abai continued to dream of going to the West. If he could travel to Bombay, Delhi and Kanpur, why not to London or New York, where millions spoke English and had never heard the message of Lord Caitanya? That's a very interesting logic. If he could travel to Bombay, Delhi or Kanpur, why not to London or New York, where millions spoke English and had never heard the message of Lord Caitanya? Writing to Mr. Ved Prakash, a Kanpur industrialist, Abai explained his idea. Lord Caitanya said, Praninam Upakaraya, that is to say, for the benefit of all living concerned. While rendering first aid service in the battlefield, the Red Cross men, although equally disposed to all the wounded soldiers, they give first preference to the hopeful ones. The hopeless ones are sometimes neglected. In India, this is Prabhupada's writing to Mr. Ved Prakash. The whole thing is that. Again, I forgot to put it in italics. In India, even after the, next time I'll get it down properly. In India, even after the attainment of Swaraj, the mentality is predominant by made in London ideas. It is a long story, but in a nutshell, the leaders of India, in the name of secular government, they've engaged themselves in everything foreign. They've carefully set aside the treasure house of India's spiritual asset, and they're imitating the Western material way of life, constantly engaged in the acts of error of judgment, misgivings, imperfectness, and duplicity. India's Vedic knowledge is above all the conditional defects mentioned above. But we Indians at the present moment have neglected such wonderful Vedic knowledge. It is due to its improper handling. This Vedanta Sutra is presented in India by unauthorized persons of different camps, and as such, the people are being misguided. Newly sprung up national enthusiasm of the Indian leaders, industrialists, and plan makers have no time nor the desire to understand the message of Vedanta Sutra or even the Bhagavad Gita. You cannot do acts of humanity without proper guidance. So my idea of preaching in the foreign countries means that they are rather fed up with material advancement of knowledge. They are seeking the message, guidance of the Vedanta Sutra, or for the matter of the Bhagavad Gita, in an authentic way. And I'm sure India will again go back to the spiritual life when the principle is accepted by the Europeans, Americans, etc. Because the Indian people are now in the habit of begging. after neglecting their own property. That was my viewpoint. But all the same, we must take only the opportunity of service. Now, notice here in this letter, Prabhupada has so clearly understood the situation of the world. So it is not that he had to travel to the West to understand the condition of the world. When he traveled to the West, he understood certain specific details of the situation. But the situation was understood by him even before he went to the West. Even before he went to the West, he had understood the nature of modern civilization. He could see the Indians imitating the West. And so it was very clear what was happening in the West. They were trying to bring it to India. And it is not that Srila Prabhupada did not understand his audience. Sometimes there is this thing that, okay, in some places and circumstances, because it was a Western audience, Prabhupada did not know exactly what to do. For example, once he spoke at a university about the Vietnam War, and there was almost a riot. So then Prabhupada said, oh, maybe we should not speak about it. But it's not that he did not understand the mentality of the audience, therefore he made a mistake. Rather, he had understood the mentality of all people. There is only a detail that Prabhupada was trying to speak the basic philosophy of Krishna consciousness. There, the audience became hostile. So then that's why Prabhupada said, when you have audiences like that, it's better to make everyone chant Hare Krishna. But Prabhupada did not say, therefore, let us change the way we pitch the Krishna consciousness movement. Okay, so let's go on. One way of expanding his way of preaching was to mail copies of Back to Godhead outside India. Now, please hear this paragraph carefully. Look at Prabhupada's vision. One way of expanding his way of preaching was to mail copies of Back to Godhead outside India. And as an incentive for enlisting donors, he made it known that the donor's name would be printed on each copy. His ambition was to bring in large donations, run large printings, and send Back to Godhead to more than 50 countries. He assigned quotas. America would receive 10,000 copies. Argentina, 500. Belgium, 500. Brazil, 500. Burma, 1,000. Canada, 500. Chile, 500. China, 10,000, and so on, including 10,000 for Russia and 10,000 for England. But the donors and donations never appeared, and the plans for Back to Godhead were never realized. Now, look at the amount of how specific Prabhupada was. He even planned how much copies to send where. And all the while he was actually struggling so much. He was actually really struggling. But his visions had no fetters. They were unlimitedly expanding. Okay. Abai found that the people of India's educated, cultured class were rejecting their own spiritual culture, and the religiously inclined masses were being baffled by an array of conflicting, unauthorized doctrines presented in the name of Hinduism. Now, notice what Prabhupada does here. Starting from here, you see what Prabhupada does. An alarming example of this came to his attention as he was preaching in Bombay during the summer of 1958. Bhagavat Week was being publicized by a group whose teachings conflicted with the pure Parampara presentation of the Bhagavata. The Bhagavata, Srimad Bhagavatam, was the devotional scripture par excellence, the literally incarnation of Krishna. Yet the organizers of Bhagavat Week were using Srimad Bhagavatam to teach impersonalism and minimize Lord Krishna. Through friends, Abai learned of the outrageous meetings, and finally on July 28, 1958, he wrote to the Bhagavat Week leader, Sri Ratanshi, imploring him to stay away from Srimad Bhagavatam. He writes, now notice this letter. I beg to inform you that I am receipt of your invitation letter in the matter of observing Bhagavat Week through the Secretary of Bombay Spiritual Center. As I know what sort of Bhagavat Week can be observed by the Mayavadins for misleading the innocent public, and therefore I not only restrain myself from attending the function, But I also advise many others not to attend for the very reason that the recitation of the Holy Bhagavat is being performed by men who have no access in this great scripture, in which only the liberated persons who are freed from all pretentious religiosities can take part. Now, if you notice Prabhupada, how he's dealing with this, he's not saying, oh, you're doing a good thing by trying to organize a Bhagavat week. No, Prabhupada goes straight for the jugular. He goes straight to the point that this is misleading the innocent public, this presentation of Bhagavat. So, some friends who attended your Bhagavat week have told me how the pastimes of Lord Krishna were being wrongly interpreted in your organization on the pretext of saving Krishna from being an immoral personality. To save these foolish audiences in future, Maharaj Parikshit had already asked Shripad Shukadeva Goswami to clear the Rasalila activities of Lord Sri Krishna. The transcendental nature of Rasalila does not require to be apologized by any Mayavadi or mundane moralist. The Leela is what it is. In the shloka number 10, it is forbidden that a mundane person should indulge in hearing Rasalila or should hear Rasalila from a mundane person. In your organization, both the audience and the lecturer are mundane persons, and their indulgence in the matter of Rasalila out of sheer foolishness will result in imitating Rudra, Lord Shiva, who swallowed up an ocean of poison. Look at that temperament. Then Abhay warned that legal action could be taken against such a religious fraud. But Bhagavat week continued and hundreds were cheated. So Prabhupada, he consistently exhibited this temperament from the beginning that he manifested his Krishna consciousness. He's a Nitya Siddha. So Nitya Siddhas at some point in their life, they manifest full Krishna consciousness. So Prabhupada began to manifest full Krishna consciousness once he met Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. They are not like ordinary conditioned souls. They don't take to Krishna consciousness. They just manifest their Krishna consciousness. So from the time that he met Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur until Srila Prabhupada's last physical breath in Vrindavan, he maintained the same consistent temperament, which is to oppose anything which is against the teachings of Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu, to oppose Mayavada, atheism, and consistently Prabhupada did that. While the professed followers of Vedic culture were being baffled in their allegiance, modern westernized Indians were rejecting Vedic culture as backwards and irrelevant. There was Prime Minister Nehru, who wasn't at all spiritually inclined. He was for modernization and for what Abhay called made in London ideas. At least Mahatma Gandhi, although he had never responded to Abhay's letters, had been spiritually inclined, but not so his follower Pandit Nehru. Still, out of concern for the way India's leaders were rejecting their country's spiritual heritage, Abhay decided to write Pandit Nehru. Although in Bombay, Abhay was practically homeless, in August of 1958, he boldly wrote the Prime Minister expressing his conviction that India's spiritual culture must not only be revived at home, but also be distributed to the West. He reminded Pandit Nehru that from ancient Greece down to the atomic age, the Western world had seen only materialism and had therefore never known peace. If Nehru were to continue following the path of materialism, the only results would be strife and war. Therefore, India may not waste her time in imitating the Western way of life. You have admitted it that the position of Indian culture is of high order, but at the same time, you want to bring in material prosperity by scientific advancement of knowledge. But what is that scientific knowledge? Spiritualism is also advanced scientific knowledge. Material advancement of scientific knowledge cannot give even material prosperity to the people in general. Do you think that horseless carriage or telephonic or radio communication or any other such ephemeral facilities of life can bring in material prosperity? No, it cannot. Material prosperity means the people must have sufficient to eat or to maintain the body very soundly. Do you think that your different plans have brought in that material prosperity, or that modern Western civilization can bring in that prosperity? Even they are given that facility. Even they are given that facility, the unrest will continue to go on till there is spiritual satisfaction of life. That is the secret of peace. Even without having been to the West, Abai expressed his conviction that the Americans and even the Russians were hankering for spiritual realization. They could not have become satisfied merely with material advancement. Pandit Nehru, therefore, should help his friends in the West by offering them spiritual knowledge from India. Now, notice the next paragraph. Poverty means poverty of knowledge. Prime Minister Chanakya used to live in a thatched cottage, but he was the dictator of India during the time of Chandragupta. Mahatma Gandhi voluntarily accepted the way of living of the so-called poor man and was the dictator of India's destiny. But was he poverty-stricken? He was proud of his spiritual knowledge. Therefore, spiritual knowledge makes a man really rich man, and not the radio set or the motor car. Look at the whole thread of reasoning there that Prabhupada uses. That whole thing about how scientific advancement means spiritual advancement. He very clearly says it. And spiritual advancement brings beneficial results. But whereas material advancement can only bring dissatisfaction. No matter what is done, peace is still missing. Back in the 1930s, the Nehru family had bought their medicines from Abai's Prayag pharmacy. And Abai now appealed to Pandit Nehru as an old friend from Allahabad. Just as Abai had requested Mahatma Gandhi, he requested Nehru to leave his political responsibilities and, as a popular gentleman of the world, engage the rest of your life in this organized spiritual movement to make real adjustment of Western material science combined with Indian way of spiritual life, spiritual realization. As Prabhupada would often say, East meets the West, or the lame man carrying the blind man. So Prabhupada would often say, India is like the lame man. They have vision, they have spiritual vision, but they are crippled. Whereas the Western audience are, very well fit materially, but they don't have vision. So the lame man can carry the blind man on his shoulder, and both of them together can make wonderful progress. So that was Prabhupada's formula of making the East meet with the West. Among Abai's former Bombay contacts was Mr. Harbans Lal. Now notice what Prabhupada does here. And among Abai's former Bombay contacts was Mr. Harbans Lal, a landlord who had once assured Abai that he would provide him lodging whenever he needed. In the summer of 1958, Abai went to call on Mr. Harbans Lal, only to find that he had gone to the West. When Abai learned that Mr. Harbans Lal was traveling not only on business, but on a cultural mission, his imagination seized on the idea of an Indian on a cultural mission in the West. He wrote to Mr. Harbans Lal asking for a place to stay, but also presenting his own cultural mission. Abai knew that many Westerners respected Indian culture. He had heard from his German godbrother that although Indians who went to the West, especially to Germany, were well received, they were sometimes tested on their knowledge of Indian culture. So Abai advised Mr. Harbans Lal to teach the real conclusion of Indian culture as he traveled. I think, Prabhupada's writing, I think that people need this Indian message in this hour of necessity when the atomic bomb is hovering over the head of the human society. Please, therefore, begin the activities for the benefit of all people in the foreign countries, since you have gone there. Clearly, Abai would have liked to have gone himself. Abai also reminded Mr. Harbans Lal of his promise to provide him with an apartment. I am passing my days in Bombay in great inconvenience for want of a suitable residential place, but the letter never caught up with the touring Mr. Harbans Lal. Wanting to go to the west as soon as possible, Abai visited one of his god brothers in Bombay, Kripa Sindhu, and asked him to help. Now, this is a turning point. Kindly note what happens. Kripa Sindhu, he came to my house and asked me to help him in going to America. He gave me some back to Godhead, which he said I could show to people to ask for help on his behalf. I tried to do something in this regard. I introduced Abhay Babu to one man, a big industrialist, Hemraj Kandelwala. I went also. The three of us sat down and I told the man how Abhay wanted to go to the West and how he was a good devotee and was writing and doing so many things. But somehow or other, the man did not help. Then what happened? Look, this is where it all begins. Kripa Sindhu told Abai of how the Gaudiya Mutt in Bombay had sometimes been assisted by a pious business magnate, Mrs. Sumati Morarji, head of Scindia Steamship Lines. Abai tried to see her, but was unable. He did, however, see one of Mrs. Morarji's employees, a deputy manager for the Scindia company, who heard him out and to Abai's surprise, responded generously. Considering Abai a genuine sadhu, the Scindia agent offered him a 50% concession on a voyage from India to the United States. That's quite a significant discount for a sadhu. I mean, because it was a sadhu, 50% concession on a voyage from India to the United States. He even put it in writing. Abba immediately began arranging for his passport and visa, but he could not raise even the half fare. But he could not raise even the half fare. Back in 1956 in Delhi, he had been struggling and homeless. And now, as he considered his last 2 years of traveling out of Vrindavan, he felt that his position hadn't really improved. Perhaps Krishna didn't want him to succeed in this way. He felt his position hadn't really improved. Perhaps Krishna didn't want him to succeed in this way. But one positive thing he had gained, determination to go to the West and preach. There he would surely meet with success. Okay, so although I'll summarize everything in the last, but I received some private suggestions last week after the class that it would be good if I stop after each section before we go into the next section if there are any questions. So if there are any questions so far. Any questions? Okay, so shall we go ahead? Looks like. So, Prabhupada was in a situation where he was not even able to raise even the half fare. The deputy manager of the Scindia ship company had offered Srila Prabhupada half fare to go to America. But even that, Srila Prabhupada was not able to raise. So, with that situation, in that situation, Srila Prabhupada went back to Vrindavan. And that's where Prabhupada wrote that famous poem, Vrindavan Bhajan. A very beautiful poem. So let's go through that now. So when he went, if you notice here, when he goes to Vrindavan, actually Prabhupada is alone. He's poor and he has no clue how to execute the mission of a spiritual master. No clue means he knows the method, but no clue how he's going to succeed in fulfilling the instruction of his Guru Maharaj. But he tries everything possible. So when he goes back to Vrindavan alone, poor, Sitting in the Vamshi Gopalji temple, he composed this poem, Vrindavan Bhajan. Abai composed a Bengali poem, Vrindavan Bhajan. Its opening stanzas were especially self-reflective and personal. Now, for those of you who are not aware, this has been released in the form of a complete book, and there's an elaborate purport commentary on this book by His Holiness Jayapataka Maharaj, which is available for sale in Mayapur and so many other places. It's called Vrindavan Bhajan itself. The title of the book is Vrindavan Bhajan. So Prabhupada writes, I'm sitting alone in Vrindavan Dham. In this mood, I'm getting many realizations. I have my wife, sons, daughters, grandsons, everything. But I have no money. So they are a fruitless glory. Krishna has shown me the naked form of material nature. By his strength, it has all become tasteless to me today. Yasyaham anugrihnami harishye tad dhanam shanai. I gradually take away the wealth of those upon whom I am merciful. How was I able to understand this mercy of the all-merciful? What is that mercy? That everything in this material world should become tasteless. Since we are now 2 years into the pandemic, so those of you in the audience, if some of you have got it, have got COVID in the first or the second wave, or if you know of people who got it, then one of the symptoms of it is tastelessness. I remember my father, he told me that it was almost like eating some cardboard when he would eat food. So tasteless. And so they don't feel like eating. So that's how the entire material world is supposed to look like eternally, not temporarily. Eternally, it's supposed to be like that, tasteless. So that how do we get that? How do we get tuned to that reality? Actually, it is tasteless, but we are thinking it is tasty. So how do we? In fact, it's the opposite of the corona. Actually, reality is it's tasteless, but due to some virus called Bhavaroga. Due to the Bhavaroga virus, we are thinking it is tasty. This is the problem. So what is tasteless is made to appear tasty. So how, when we become free from this Bhavaroga virus, then we begin to see, oh, this is actually tasteless, this material world. The real beautiful thing is Krishna consciousness, which is full of nectar. Pratipadam Purna Amrita Swadanam, which is every step there is nectar, ever expanding nectar. That is Krishna consciousness. In the material world, everything is tasteless. That is for that we really need the mercy of the Supreme Lord. Everyone has abandoned me, seeing me penniless. Wife, relatives, friends, brothers, everyone. This is misery, but it gives me a laugh. I sit alone and laugh. Now, what a statement. Because normally, people who are in this situation are depressed, abandoned by everyone, penniless. Wife, relatives, friends, brothers, everyone is abandoned Srila Prabhupada. This is misery. But how is Prabhupada reacting to the misery? He's reacting to it with a laugh. I sit alone and laugh. Why is he sitting alone and laughing? Because Krishna has created that arrangement. So he looks at the irony of it, and he's getting the sense of laughing at that situation. How Krishna has shown him that all this is completely tasteless and useless ultimately. In this Maya Samsara, whom do I really love? Where have my loving father and mother gone now? And where are all my elders who are my own folk? Who will give me news of them? Tell me who. All that is left of this family life is a list of names. This is all that family life boils down to. It becomes a list of names. That's it. as the froth on the sea water mixes again in the sea, Maya Samsara's play is just like that. No one is mother or father or personal relative. Just like the sea foam, they remain but a short time. Just as the froth on sea water mixes again in the sea, the body made of 5 elements meets with destruction. How many bodies does the embodied soul take in this way? His relatives are all related merely to the temporal body. Basically, the idea here is that everyone in this material world is a stranger to everyone else. We are brought together in the name of certain relationships, right? Okay, we are born to our parents. But if you look at it, each of us have a different personality than our parents. Each of us is a different person. We're all actually strangers, but we're brought together by the arrangement of material nature according to our karma. And not only with respect to with parents, very easy to see. We all have different personalities than our parents, right? We are all, each person in this world is unique. Then we can also get the realization if we have children, we think, okay, we are the parents and all that, but the children have their own personality. They they grow up and have their own personality. When as they're growing up, you can see they have their own personality. Basically, everybody, husband, wife, father, mother, children, son, daughter, all of them are all strangers actually, but brought together by the arrangement of material nature according to karma. But everyone is your relative brother on the spiritual platform. This is the point. This relationship is not tinged with the smell of Maya, because spiritual platform, everybody is. Why only a few people? Everybody is your relative brother on the spiritual platform. This relationship is not tinged with the smell of Maya. The Supreme Lord is the soul of everyone. In relation to him, everyone in the universe is the same. All your relatives, brother, all the billions of jivas, and see in relation to Krishna, they're all in harmony. Forgetting Krishna, the jiva desires sense gratification. And as a result, he's firmly grasped by Maya. Okay. That's the end of this particular thing about Vrindavan Bhajan, this poem, this beautiful, extremely deep, yet very simple and very lucid poem. Anyone has any thoughts or questions on this? Okay, so we'll move on to the next section. Now, if you look at the kind of things that Prabhupada has gone through, every step he's meeting with failure. Every step, literally every step is meeting with failure. Usually when failures increase, people spiral into depression. But for a pure devotee, it is exactly the opposite. Instead of spiraling into depression, he is becoming exponentially more determined. Now, in the midst of all this calamity, alone, poor, no money, with all the different struggles that he went through, he revived the Bhakti Godhead again. So let's go to that. I have a question for you all. Can some of you unmute and tell me? Because there's loud music playing from the other side of the Jalangi. And is the music interfering with my talk? Can you please let me know? Then accordingly, we'll have to close.
No, Prabhu.
No
We don't
problem.
get.
Okay, fine. Prem Goswami Prabhu has raised hand. Oh, you want me to want to ask a question or something?
Yeah, just want to ask a question.
Yes,
This wonderful poem which Prabhupada has written,
yeah.
there's so much deep reality in this. How can we use this reality in preaching? Can you just throw some light?
See, Prabhupada said, when we chant the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, we should chant like the cry of a child for its mother. That should be the mood in which we should chant the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. Now, we can chant with that mood. Why does the child cry for its mother? What does it mean? It means that the child is utterly helpless. What's it? Rudradeep, I think the camera is tilted towards one side. Can you I think it's just adjust it, because it looks weird when I'm looking at the screen. Just give me a second. Yeah, I think that's better. It's better. No. Turn the other way. No, I think no, the other way. Sorry, the other way. More. That's it. I think that's okay. Stop it. Yeah. So why does the child, when it says child crying for its mother, the child cries in a very helpless mood, actually cries in a very helpless mood, because the only source of shelter for the child is the mother. So therefore, the child cries in a very helpless mode. So Prabhupada said we should chant the Hare Krishna mantra like this: helpless, a cry of a child for its mother. And we are not able to cry helplessly like that because we have so many objects of security in this material world. Imagined objects of security. They cannot provide security. Whether it's father, mother, wife, children, nobody can provide security in this material world. It's only Krishna who can provide shelter. So, first of all, unless we become utterly helpless, unless we understand this position of what we are in, and unless we begin to chant helplessly, that this is a very dangerous place, like I remember even before I took to Krishna consciousness, I used to be very worried about one aspect of it, which is what actually also helped me to overcome a lot of obstacles in Krishna consciousness. In the initial obstacles, when family and other members would try to object to Krishna consciousness. Because even before I took to Krishna consciousness, I would always imagine the scenario. If I'm lying on my deathbed, people can come and speak a lot of nice words, but who can help me at that time? Nobody. I knew that from before. Nobody's going to help me. That used to be my preoccupation. How do I get out of the situation? If I'm in my deathbed, I know that my mother is very affectionate and all that, but I had seen when I fall sick, no matter what she talks, however nicely she talks, the feeling of sickness doesn't go away. You're still sick. So I knew at some point in time, when I have to die, of course, mother may not be there at that time. Whatever, all these sweet-faced relatives and all of them, family members, they're all fallible soldiers in the war, as Ravindra Suruprabhu puts it. And we're all doomed. So we are utterly alone at the time of death. So nobody can help us, right? So we just have to imagine the situation that there's nobody who can help us except the holy name of Krishna. So, holy name of Krishna means Krishna and his devotees. Of course, if we are surrounded by devotees, very fortunate. But the point is that, we derive our security from, the moment we derive our security from material, this person will take care of me. That's not how we're supposed to derive security. The holy name and devotional service and devotees will take care of me. Not the fact that some arrangement or the concept that we are being protected by anything other than Krishna. That is a very big problem. So unless we begin to get a sense of what Prabhupada is writing here, we will not be able to chant attentively and intensely like the child's cry for his mother. And unless we are able to do that, we cannot be really compassionate. Once we see the situation, then we begin to chant intensely. And when we do that, we don't want anyone to be in that same situation, that terrifying situation of being alone without anyone in this world. We don't want anyone to be in that terrifying situation. So we naturally, out of compassion, we would want to go and give out Krishna consciousness to others. Is it okay?
What I meant is like how do we put it to non-devotees so that they can understand this reality or appreciate this reality? How do we put it across to non-devotees when we are preaching to them?
I mean, preach the same way that Prabhupada preached, right? He says, no, I mean, like all the acharyas, like they say the same thing Prabhupada, try to make them understand that he's a Kamala Jala Jala, Divana Talamala. I mean, the material world is like very dangerous place. Any moment you can leave. What is your destination after you leave? Do you know even where are you going? So what happens to everything that you've accumulated? All these. So sometimes people are a little bit materially satisfied, you know. Like in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna uses two words actually. He says Dukkhalayam and he says Ashashvatam, right? Dukkhalayam means a place of misery. Like I've given this example before. We give fancy names to the houses we build, Sukhalayam and so many things, because we expect what we dream to manifest in that house, Sukha. But Krishna has built this material world and he's given it the name Dukkhalayam. So who can understand the material world better than Krishna? He himself is the creator. So he's calling it Dukkhalayam. How can we expect happiness here? That's the first point. So the other thing which Krishna says is Ashashvatam. So suppose you meet a materially very happy person. And there's something called a materially very happy person. Somebody who is relatively happy, you know. You say, oh, I've got everything. I'm nice. So then the question is, Krishna uses two things. One is he says Dukkhalayam. Other one he says Ashashvatam. So you can always ask them the question as Prabhupada would ask, you know, how long is it going to last? How long is it going to? One day it's going to finish. Okay, you're having a good time, but it's perishable. It may not be bad as you're experiencing right now. You may not feel it bad, but it's perishable. It is going to go away. It's going to go away. So we have to bring up this point that ultimately, in the as Prabhupada would give the example of I mean, in the Bhagavatam he explains that just like everyone has to fly their own aeroplane, you know, so that flying the aeroplane is the moment of death. So everybody has to be brought to that reality. Death is not very far away from people's minds. That's why there's a lot of depression and a lot of things, anxiety because of the pandemic. Why? People want to live. So it's causing some anxiety that because the concept of enjoyment is tied to the body. If there's no body, what's the meaning of enjoyment? So the fact that the body is perishable, if you tell them the body may fall sick, they may not relate to it. But if you tell them, yeah, they may, some may be, but the very fact that you're going to be destroyed, one day you're going to die, that death can happen anytime. So why not enjoy fully before you die? And this is how you enjoy. Prem goes to the Prabhu.
Yeah, okay. Okay, thank you.
There's something on the chat. Oh, okay. That's I think a response to the sound question about sound. Okay. I just need a break, 1 minute for just drinking some water. Prem Gaurav Prabhu, I just wanted to make one more point, which I missed. Very important point. I don't know if I mentioned it during the Prabhupada Leelamrita session or during Bhagavatam, some of the Bhagavatam classes. I don't remember where I mentioned it. But Prabhupada, when he says purity is the force, what does it mean? Purity is the force, which means that when we practice Krishna consciousness, we are in touch with Krishna, you know. So to the degree to which we are in touch with Krishna, when we speak, we transmit the experience of Krishna consciousness. It's not just some words that we are speaking. We are also transmitting experience of Krishna consciousness. So when we speak to people, we not only transmit experience of Krishna consciousness, we'll also be able to transmit the reality of the material world. Both things happen. So it depends to the degree to which we are purity is the first degree to which we have been established in Krishna consciousness. To the degree to which we have been established in Krishna consciousness, to that degree, when we talk, we'll be able to transmit the experience of Krishna consciousness to others. We'll also be able to transmit the reality of the material world. It's not just some words which they'll hear. They'll also experience a certain thing. They'll also get some realization when we speak with if we are properly established in Krishna consciousness when we speak. Of course, as Prabhupada writes in the poem, we'll see that later on, that only by Krishna's empowerment, Krishna's mercy can the speaking become favorable for their understanding. That's there. But Prabhupada gave us that mandate, that purity is the force. So we have to be properly established in Krishna consciousness, depend on the mercy of our superiors, spiritual masters, Srila Prabhupada, and then we'll be able to successfully transmit the experience of Krishna consciousness to others. Is it okay?
Yeah, thank you, Prabhuji. Of course, I'm awaiting that kind of mercy. I still don't have. Neither am I so pure.
No. See, the point is, when we say we are not pure, that is not an excuse not to preach. In fact, we should think the other way around. That what is it? We've been given this mercy by Srila Prabhupada. Why I shall not take that and use it and give it to others? Why I shall not take it? We should have that kind of a mood. Mercy is giving. Prabhupada is giving openly. He's giving out the mercy. Why I will not take it and give it out to others? That should be our mood. That I should take it and give it. Come on. That's what Prabhupada wants us to do. That is the instruction that he's given us. Take the mercy and distribute it.
I agree.
Okay. So we'll go on to the next section then. Now, as I mentioned that despite all the situation, Prabhupada revives the Bhakti Godhead and he publishes 2 issues also. So we'll go into this. Is an interesting phase. Now, Prabhupada would not only stay in Vrindavan, but he would occasionally visit Delhi to explore the possibilities of doing something in regard to preaching. On an October visit to Delhi, Abhay received a donation from Kaviraj Vaidyanath Sarkar to be used for printing 1,000 copies of Bhakti Godhead. Abhay promptly produced an October 20 issue of Bhakti Godhead. This is 1958. Abhay promptly produced an October 20 issue of Bhakti Godhead and with the donor's name on the front page. It was the first issue in 2 years. The last one was, if you remember, November of 1956, and now it is October of 1958. It was the first issue in 2 years. Another donor, Mr. Subodh Kumar Kapoor of Ramlal Kapoor and Sons, followed Mr. Sarkar's example and donated 1,000 copies for the November 20 issue. The front page article in November issue was Truth and Beauty. An editorial in the Times of India speculating on whether truth and beauty were compatible had opined that truth was not always beautiful, but often ugly and unpleasant. Abhay disagreed. Truth is so beautiful that many sages, saints, and devotees have left everything for the sake of truth. But we are habituated to love untruth from time immemorial in the name of truth. It is that untruth which is actually ugly and unpleasant. Abhay agreed, however, that mundane truth and beauty were incompatible. Not only was mundane truth not beautiful, it was not truth. And mundane beauty was not real beauty. To explain, Abhay told a story. This is there in the Science of Civilization. Many of you may know this. Once a man fell in love with a beautiful girl who tried to resist the man's advances. When he persisted, she requested that he wait for 7 days, after which she would accept him. During the next 7 days, the girl took a strong purgative and laxative and repeatedly passed stool and vomited. She stored the refuse in buckets. Thus, the so-called beautiful girl became lean, thin like a skeleton, and turned blackish in complexion, and the beautiful eyeballs were pushed into the sockets of the skull. The man appeared on the scene well dressed and well behaved and asked the waiting girl, who was depressed in appearance, about the beautiful girl who called him there. The man could not recognize the waiting girl as the same beautiful girl whom he was asking for. The same girl, however, was in a pitiable condition, and the foolish man, in spite of repeated assertion, could not recognize her. It was all due to the action of the medicine only. At last, the girl told the powerful man all the story of her beauty and told him that she had separated the ingredients of her beauty and stored them up in the reservoirs. She also told him that he could enjoy the juices of beauty stored up in the reservoirs. The mundane, poetic, or the lunatic man agreed to see the juices of beauty, and thus he was directed to the store of loose stool and liquid vomit, which were emanating unbearable bad smell, and thus the whole story of beauty liquid was disclosed to him. Now, how Prabhupada uses this is very important. Abhay went on to assert that literature which does not describe the ultimate truth and beauty of the Supreme Person was no better than stool and vomit, even though it be presented as poetry and philosophy. Now, this is something very strong for sadhus to do. It's usually the profile of a sadhu is someone who talks in a very nice manner and who tries to make you happy, hopeful, and things like that. But people are not ready to listen to things like this generally. That mundane beauty is like this, and then all the literatures that you're reading, the Time magazine, and Prabhupada especially did not like the Time magazine. He had a problem with Time magazine. He said that it tries to make the material world nice and enjoyable. So Prabhupada especially against the Time magazine. So the point is that any literature that does not describe the Supreme Person is no better than stool and vomit. That position to be taken by a sadhu taking up that stand, it's not very rare. How many sadhus do you find in India who take up that kind of a stand? The light is flickering. One light is flickering. Can you just turn it on? In standard morality, Abhay explained, morality is the standard of activity by which the supreme authority is satisfied. The scriptures contain, now notice this, now this is the definition of morality. Morality is the standard of activity by which the supreme authority is satisfied. The scriptures contain moral codes prohibiting unholy sex relations, animal slaughter, intoxication, and gambling. Abhay attributed Mahatma Gandhi's success as a public leader to his observance of these moral principles. Abhay also praised the Vedic system of marriage. After the attainment of puberty, a woman wants a male, and if she's not married within that time and allowed to mix up with boys, it's quite natural and there's a very good chance of fall down either by the boy or the girl. Despite changing social conditions, Abhay argued, you cannot indulge in unholy connection with the opposite sex just because the social conditions have changed, because unholy connection with woman is the beginning of all immorality. This Prabhupada repeatedly says in his books, unholy connection with woman is the beginning of all immorality. In Scholars Deluded, Abhay presented a critical review of Dr. Radhakrishnan, is the President of India, presented a critical review of Dr. Radhakrishnan's edition of Bhagavad Gita, citing specifically the 34th verse of the 9th chapter, wherein Lord Krishna declares that one should always think of him and become his devotee. Dr. Radhakrishnan had commented, it is not the personal Krishna to whom we have to give ourselves up utterly, but the unborn, beginningless, eternal who speaks through Krishna. And the obvious meaning of Bhagavad Gita was that one should surrender to Krishna. Although the obvious meaning of Bhagavad Gita was that one should surrender to Krishna, the Supreme Person, impersonalists like Dr. Radhakrishnan, obstructed the direct meaning with their word jugglery. So, the same tone, the same tenor, the same uncompromising preaching. Abhay is practically, Prabhupada is practically homeless. Then he writes to, whether he's homeless, he's not afraid. boldly writes to Pandit Nehru, saying that what he's doing is wrong. Then here he's writing about writing that Dr. Radhakrishnan, the President of India, is wrong, the Prime Minister is wrong. And then earlier you saw that he wrote to Mr. Ratanshi, who's organizing the Bhagavad Week, that you people are just misleading and cheating people. So Prabhupada was very, very consistent that he could not tolerate anything which minimized Krishna's position or the position of his devotees. Okay. Going to the next section. Any questions on this? Any comments rather? Looks like there are none, so we'll go on to the next section. So we know that Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur's disappearance day comes usually somewhere in the last week of December. Sorry, not last week of December. Somewhere from beginning to the end of December. Somewhere in between, depending on which cycle we are. If you're closer to the, if right after Purushottam month, it comes towards the end. Otherwise, it comes a little earlier. So, on the occasion of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur's disappearance, Srila Prabhupada wrote a beautiful poem. It is called Viraha Ashtaka. Now, before we read the Viraha Ashtaka, it is very important that we carefully hear what Satsvarup Maharaj has to say. In that section, he very beautifully captures what had happened to what Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur wanted and what had happened, and the context in which Prabhupada wrote that poem. So I'm presenting the entire section because Satsvarup Maharaj presents the context in a very beautiful, summarized manner. On the disappearance day of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, Abhay keenly felt separation from his spiritual master. He perfectly understood that Srila Bhaktisiddhanta's instructions were more important than his physical presence, and that in fact the spiritual master was present within his instructions. In this way, Abhay had always been with his spiritual master. He lives forever by his divine instructions, and the follower lives with him. That is what he writes in the beginning of the Bhagavatam. We all know that. Yet on this annual day, Abhay could not help feeling loss. He remembered how in 1932, he had been a Grahastha and a new disciple. At that time, he had not been free to do as much service as now. Yet it had been in those years that he had been able to see his spiritual master, offer obeisances before him, eat the remnants of his prasadam, walk beside him, hear his voice, receive his personal glance. Abhay thought of their meetings together. How powerful had been Srila Bhaktisiddhanta's mission. His presses had been running day and night, printing magazines, books, the daily Nadiya Prakasha. And Europe had been a promising new preaching field. With Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur at the helm, the Gaudiya Math had entered into battle against Maya's forces. And Srila Bhaktisiddhanta had made all his disciples unafraid. Abhay had always been eager to serve a spiritual master, to serve within the Gaudiya Math with its headquarters in Calcutta. But exactly how he would serve had never been clear to him until his last letter from Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. Abhay looked back on the more than 20 years since his spiritual master's disappearance. The Gaudiya Math had been undone by its leaders, and everyone else had scattered like leaves in a storm. It was an unspeakable loss, and it was an old story how the big sannyasis had disregarded their spiritual master's instructions and had intrigued, disputed, litigated, violent party factions, false leaders claiming to be world acharya, and which party had been right. No, both had been wrong, all wrong, because the Gaudiya Math had disintegrated Now there were dozens of little mutts and no preaching, no real preaching as before. When he, Simha Guru, had cast fear into the Mayavadis, had led an army of young, powerful preachers to march throughout India and the world, and the greatest sufferers of the Gaudiya Math's dissolution were the people, the non-devotees, who had little hope of being delivered from the batterings of Maya. Notice how beautifully Satsarup Maharaj captures it. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati had begun a spiritual revolution, but that revolution had now been overthrown by Maya. The scattered particles of the Gaudiya Math had settled quietly into self-satisfied, insular, almost impotent units. And it was the people in general who suffered. Abai groped after memories of a spiritual master. He felt secure in that his own relationship with Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati was intact, continuing. Yet he felt helpless. He was diligently pursuing the spiritual master's order to preach in English. Yet without a spiritual master's physical presence, he felt small and very much alone. At times like this, he questioned the wisdom of having left his family and business. Lamenting Srila Bhaktisiddhanta's absence and the fall of the Gaudiya Math, he composed a Bengali poem, Viraha Ashtaka. This is here Srila Prabhupada is referring to his spiritual master as Srila Prabhupada, because Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur also was known as Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada, you're always compassionate towards the fallen soul, towards the suffering jiva souls. On this occasion of your separation, I see only dejection. An unlimited ocean of mercy, cutting an illusion. Nityananda distributed an ocean of flood of love of Godhead. The Jati Gosai stopped the stream. But coming yourself, Lord, you revealed this illusion. So once again, everyone was immersed in the flood of love. Even one so fallen, insignificant and sinful as I. On the strength of Lord Chaitanya's order, you sent all of your servants door to door as gurus. There was preaching everywhere, from the sea to the Himalayas. Notice that. There's preaching everywhere, from the sea, from the southern tip to the northern tip. That's what it means. There's preaching everywhere, from the sea to the Himalayas. Now in your absence, everything is darkness. O Srila Prabhupada, you're always compassionate towards the suffering jiva souls. On this occasion of your separation, I see only dejection. In the same way that Advaita Prabhu brought Lord Gaura, so did Bhakti Vinod pray. His enthusiasm brought you. On the strength of his enthusiasm, you came and made everyone understand that India is a holy land. One who takes his birth in the land of Bharata must make his life perfect and then preach to others. This Maha Mantra message you preached everywhere. Now in your absence, Lord, everything is darkness. Your ocean of compassion has again been stopped. The spear of great misery has cut through my heart. Without Lord Chaitanya's message, there is just confusion. Seeing this, all the Vaishnavas feel pangs of separation. The conditioned souls are all in darkness once again. They're searching for peace, but are dying in an ocean of anxiety. O Srila Prabhupada, you're always compassionate towards the suffering jiva souls. On this occasion of your separation, I see only dejection. Abhai's was a dark view. The golden era of preaching that had flourished in the days of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati was no longer. By the influence of Maya, Abhay wrote, now everything is in darkness. All devotional instructions have been destroyed. Now everything has been reversed. Meditating on that great personality, possessed of the divine power to save the entire world, Abhay expressed his feelings of weakness and helplessness. Because of those not fixed in devotional service, many branches have spread all over. Your conclusive message did not touch the ear. Where will I get the strength for the Sankirtan movement? How could he, a Chinese spiritual child, survive without a spiritual father? Now, who could save the world, which is so much more oppressed than ever before? Srila Bhaktisiddhanta had said that a dead man could not preach. Only one with life could preach. As long as Abai and others could deeply regret the Gaudiya Math's failure, there was still life and still hope. If everyone obtained this right and went out and made disciples, then the suffering souls in the world could be saved. It was useless to cry over what his godbrothers had done. Yet in seeing and resenting it, Abai found within the pain of what might have been a continuing spark of what still might be. Abai sent this poem and Vrindavan Bhajan to Keshav Maharaj, who published them in the Gaudiya Patrika. Now, if you remember, originally, Bhakti Prajna and Keshav Maharaj wanted Prabhupada to edit the Gaudiya Patrika. Meanwhile, Bhakti Saranga Maharaj wanted him to publish the harmonist from the Gaudiya Sangha in Delhi. So Prabhupada was doing both while he was residing in Delhi at the ashram of Bhakti Saranga Maharaj, which eventually they did not want Prabhupada there because of his expansive ideas which they could not relate to. Okay, now we're coming to a very interesting part where the dream reoccurs. Remember that dream twice Prabhupada had the dream. Once again, Prabhupada has that dream. The tall, scholarly Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati, the resident of Vaikunta, the Vaikunta man, as Prabhupada would call him, a member of Krishna's personal entourage, coming in his dream and beckoning Srila Prabhupada to take sannyas. That dream reoccurs. So let's see what Prabhupada speaks about it. This time when the dream occurs, Prabhupada is very clear. Already he is the Vanaprastha. So when the dream occurs, he is now clear that he has to take sannyas. He is no longer wondering how I should take sannyas, but rather he's thinking I should take sannyas. So Abai first had to approach one of his godbrothers for permission. He decided to turn to Bhakti Vilas Tirtha Maharaj, formerly Kunja Vihari, the leader of the Caitanya Math in Calcutta. Abai still thought of the Caitanya Math as the headquarters of a spiritual master's mission. During the heated legal disputes, the Caitanya Math had been the most prized acquisition. And since 1948, it had been under the legal ownership of Bhakti Vilas Tirtha Maharaj. Now, although each sannyasi had his own place or places, the Caitanya Math and Bhakti Vilas Tirtha Maharaj legally represented the Gaudiya Math entity. Abai felt that if he were to take sannyas and go preach in America, he should give the Caitanya Math the first opportunity to support his work. In April of 1959, Abai wrote to Tirtha Maharaj, inquiring about sannyas and the Caitanya Math's printing some of his manuscripts. And since no one is going abroad, he volunteered to do so on behalf of the Caitanya Math. Bhakti Vilas Tirtha Maharaj replied that Abai should first join the Caitanya Math. He mentioned the strife that still lingered. Those who are acting against Caitanya Math, they are motivated by their individual ambitions. Anyone who was against the Caitanya Math, he said, was acting illogically and against the instructions of Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati. So according to Tirtha Maharaj, the thing for Abai to do, the thing he had neglected to do for so many years, was to join the Caitanya Math and act under his direction. Tirtha Maharaj mentioned several members of the Caitanya Math but recently accepted the sannyas order, and he said that Abai could also become one in time. He invited Abai to come reside at the Caitanya Math The houses that we have, there are rooms that are airy and well lit. We will treat you exclusively. There won't be any difficulty. We will take care that no inconvenience or cost. But if as for printing books, Tirtha Maharaj wrote, we are eagerly awaiting to print the books like Shat Sandarbha, Vedanta, based on devotional service, and many other rare books by the Goswamis. First, we will print them. Books written by you will be checked by the editorial staff. And if the funds can be raised, then they can be printed according to priority. The books will be printed only if they are favorable for the service of the Caitanya Mutt. Therefore, if the fund is raised, then there is a plan to go abroad as well. So you notice this plan is significantly different from Prabhupada's idea. Abhay was not encouraged. The main difficulty he felt was the Caitanya Mutt's shortage of funds. Srila Prabhupada recollects, I was working with my broken typewriter. I went to our Tirtha Maharaj, you give me a room and print my books. Give me some money, I will join you. I had thought this is Guru Maharaj's institution. He did not say no, but the printing of books was a difficult task for him. He had no money. He was hardly collecting for maintaining. Printing of books is a big job and there is no guarantee of sale. That's the end of Prabhupada's recollection. Sasur Maharaj continues. Without printing books and going to the West, sannyas did not have meaning for Abhay. And who knew when Tirtha Maharaj would sanction his taking sannyas? There was no point in going to Calcutta just to reside in an airy, well-lit room that he had already in Vrindavan. Abhay wrote back to Tirtha Maharaj, mentioning his direct order from Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati to preach to the English-speaking people. He wanted to go to the West right away, and he had thought the Caitanya Mutt would welcome his offer. Both Abhay and Tirtha Maharaj had their responsibilities, but perhaps they could work together to carry out the desire of their spiritual master. Abhay asked Tirtha Maharaj to reconsider. On the 7th of May 1959, Bhaktivilas Tirtha Maharaj wrote back, my suggestion is, don't make any hasty decisions. For the time being, you stay with us and engage yourself in the service of the society and then accept Tridanda Sannyas. The purpose of accepting Tridanda is to serve the society. If that is your desire, then Sri Caitanya Mutt will decide about your going to America to preach and make all the arrangements. It can never be the principle of the society to let one act according to his individual attempt or desire. The society will decide after consulting with the heads what is to be done by whom. This is what I want to say. First of all, it is necessary to identify oneself with the society. In order to preach in America or in the foreign countries, it is important to have a dignified organization in the background. And secondly, it is necessary to establish oneself in India before going to preach in the foreign countries. Now it is that there are no conferences or meetings in the West as before. Communication is done through the media of television. Abhay could understand the needs and priorities of the Caitanya Mutt, but he could not allow them to overrule what he considered the highest mandate, preaching as Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati had ordered. Abhay had offered his services to the leaders of the Caitanya Mutt, thinking they might also see things his way. He thought that with the world's crying need for Krishna consciousness staring them in the face, they might see that this Abhay Babu was convinced and enthusiastic, and so should be sent right away with whatever he required. But they had other priorities. Now, not only is Tirtha Maharaj telling that the heads will decide, but they're also saying that first of all, he should be established in India before going to the West. Anyway, so we'll go on. Abhay next turned to Keshav Maharaj in Mathura, and Keshav Maharaj told Abhay to take sannyas immediately. After corresponding with Tirtha Maharaj, Abhay had felt some uncertainty about accepting sannyas, and now that he was being encouraged so strongly, he resisted. But Keshav Maharaj was insistent. Srila Prabhupada recollects, I was sitting alone in Vrindavan writing. My godbrother insisted to me, Bhaktivedanta Prabhu, you must do it. Without accepting the renounced order of life, nobody can become a preacher. So he insisted, not he insisted, practically my spiritual master insisted. He wanted me to become a preacher. So he forced me through this godbrother. You accept. So unwillingly, I accepted. Now, I won't, although the next section deals with proper sannyas initiation, with which we will also end the chapter. So, I will go on till we finish it. It's only take another 5 to 6 minutes, maybe. Then we'll take the questions. Since we had some brief questions in between, so we'll continue reading until we finish this chapter. Just a little bit more. So after Keshav Maharaj agreed, so everything was arranged. On the morning of September 17th, 1959, in the 50 by 25 foot deity room on the second floor of the Keshavaji Mutt, a group of devotees sat before the deities of Radha Krishna and Lord Chaitanya. Now, Sasur Maharaj has very beautiful ability to write. Please see the description, very beautiful descriptions. The deities were colorfully dressed in royal clothing and silver crowns. Radharani's right hand faced palm forward in benediction for the worshipper. At her side, her left hand held a flower for Krishna. Krishna stood like a dancer, placing his right leg in a casual tiptoe pose before his left, playing his long silver flute, which he held gracefully to his red lips. His long black hair reached down past his shoulders, and the garland of marigolds around his neck reached down to his knees. On his right stood the deity of Lord Chaitanya, his right arm raised, left arm at his side, his body. He was a soft golden color, and he had large eyes, a well-formed red mouth, and straight black hair down to his shoulders. One level below the deities were pictures of the spiritual masters in disciplic succession. Jagannath Das Babaji, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Gaurakishore Babaji, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati, Bhakti Pragnana Keshav Maharaj. Abai sat on a mat of kusha grass beside 90-year-old Sanatana, also to receive sannyas that day. Sitting opposite the two candidates, Narayan Maharaj, Keshav Maharaj's disciple, prepared to conduct the ceremony of mantras, an offering of grains and ghee into the fire. Akinchana Krishnadas Babaji, Abai's godbrother, known for sweet singing, played mridanga and sang Vaishnava bhajans. Sitting on a raised asan, His Holiness Keshav Maharaj presided. Since there had been no notices or invitations, only the Matta's few residents attended. Narayan Maharaj chanted the required mantras and then sat back silently while Keshav Maharaj lectured. Then, to everyone's surprise, Keshav Maharaj asked Abhay to speak. Abhay had not expected this. As he looked around at the gathering of devotees, he understood that the common language was Hindi. Only Keshav Maharaj and a few others spoke English. Yet he knew he must speak in English. After Abhay's speech, each initiate received a sannyas danda, the traditional head-high staff made of 4 bamboo rods bound together and completely enwrapped in saffron cloth. They were given their sannyas garments, 1 piece of saffron cloth for a dhoti, 1 for a top piece, and 2 strips for underwear. They also received tulsi neck beads and the sannyas mantra. Keshav Maharaj said that Abhay would now be known as Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj and Sanatan would be Muni Maharaj. After the ceremony, the 2 new sannyasis posed for a photo, standing on either side of their sannyas guru, who sat in a chair. I forgot to also put that picture. Who sat in a chair. Keshav Maharaj didn't impose any strictures on Abhay. He simply encouraged him to go on preaching. Yet Abhay knew that to become A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami did not mean merely that he was giving up family, home comforts and business. That he had done 5 years ago, changing from white cloth to saffron cloth, from Abhay Babu to Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj, had a special significance. It was the mandate he had required, the irrevocable commitment. Now it was only a matter of time before Bhaktivedanta Swami would travel to the west as Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati had ordained. This was Bhaktivedanta Swami's realization of his new sannyas status. The Gaudiya Patrika's account of sannyas initiation included a biographical sketch of Srimad Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj, listing the major events of his life. The article concluded, seeing his enthusiasm and ability to write articles in Hindi, English, and Bengali, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Maharaj gave him the instruction to take Kridandi sannyas. For nearly 1 year, he had been ready to accept sannyas. In the month of Bhadra, on the day on which Vishwarupa accepted sannyas, Bhaktivedanta Swami and the Sri Keshavaji Gaudiya Mutt accepted sannyas from the founder of the Vedanta Samiti, Bhakti Pragyana Keshav Maharaj. Seeing him accept his ashram of renunciation, seeing this pastime for accepting the renounced order of life, we have attained great affection and enthusiasm. So that ends the chapter title, Resident of Vrindavan. Okay. So we'll end today's session with that. Questions, comments? Yes, Vishnu Vandana Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Can you hear me, Prabhuji?
Yes, Mataji, Hare Krishna.
Prabhuji. I'm not too sure whether I heard it rightly, because there was one sentence that has come that Prabhupada has taken forward the decision of taking sannyas unwillingly. Is it correct, Prabhuji?
Sorry, your voice is trailing. Your voice is trailing. We're not able to hear you clearly. I don't know. At least I'm not able to hear you clearly. Can you just speak a little more slower and louder?
Okay, is that okay, Prabhuji?
Better.
Okay, so I'm not too sure whether I heard it right, Prabhuji, because there was a one line where it was stated that the decision of Prabhupada taking sannyas, it was Prabhupada's unwilling decision. Was that right, Prabhuji?
Oh, okay. Yeah, that was. I see. What happened was that he approached Tirtha Maharaj the idea of sannyas, and Tirtha Maharaj, the way he responded, Prabhupada was not so inclined after that. So when because of the fact that he was not so inclined after hearing from Tirtha Maharaj, therefore it is mentioned like that when Keshav Maharaj spoke, he was reluctant. Not that he was reluctant, otherwise he would not have approached Tirtha Maharaj in the first place.
Okay, and there was no specific reason of being.
No, it's mentioned. Satsvarupa Maharaj mentions that also, right? Because of the fact that he was discouraged by Tirtha Maharaj. Prabhupada's purpose of taking sannyas was to go to the west to preach. Right? He said, okay, you take sannyas and you prove yourself here and so many things. So if he has to take sannyas and prove himself here, what is the point?
Okay, understand. So the unwillingness is because of the idea of starting the mission here, not actually the unwillingness for taking sannyas, right, Prabhuji?
Yeah. No, in the sense that, see, the idea of taking sannyas is to go to the west and preach. But when he discouraged him and say, you take sannyas, first of all, you yourself here. Then what is the idea of taking sannyas to prove himself here? Anyway, he was living alone. Right? So that was his point. That is what Satsvarupa Maharaj brings up.
Yeah, understand, Prabhuji. Can I ask one more question, Prabhuji?
Sure.
No, this is not from today's discussion, Prabhuji.
Okay, we'll come back to you then. If no one else has, then definitely you can ask. Let's see if anyone else has any.
Okay, sure.
Leela Madhuri Lalita Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Dandavata.
Yes,
Thank you, Prabhu, for a wonderful session. My question is, a small failure or one small disturbance is more than enough for a person like me to be disturbed in material life as well as spiritual life. But Prabhupada had continuous failures. Of course, he's a Nitya Siddha. So, but he was bold enough. As you said when you were discussing, he was writing a letter to Nehru and so many things he was doing. So, how should I apply it in my life so that when something goes wrong, that I will still continue my Krishna conscious activities?
See, Prabhupada mentions in one place where I don't know if Prabhupada mentions, I don't recollect. Anyway, in the I think
Hare
Prabhupada.
Krishna.
Haribol, can you hear me? Yeah. So there's something
Yes,
called there is something called tempering of steel. You know, tempering of steel is what they do with steel is they put the steel into hot water, then they put it into cold water. They really heat, not hot water. I think they heat this. It almost becomes like fire. Then they put it in cold water. Then again they heat it. So that tempered steel is considered to be the best possible steel. So Krishna puts us in these difficult situations. Like first of all, Nitya Siddhas, Krishna puts them in these situations so that we can get inspiration from that. You know, so we can see how they reacted and we get inspiration. And for us to get inspiration, we should remember this fact that the tempered steel is the best steel. So Krishna is putting us through all these difficulties. He just wants us to prevail. He wants us to maintain our enthusiasm. And when we emerge from that, we'll be very, very strong. That is the idea. When we are going through, it may appear like we are weak, you know, but Krishna is testing us. If we can just hold on to the lotus feet of Lord Caitanya, hold on to the lotus feet of Srila Prabhupada, hold on to the lotus feet of our Guru Maharaj, hold on to the lotus feet of the great Vaishnavas who are physically present with us. So hold on to all their lotus feet and then we will be able to go through it. And once we go through it, you will know for sure that you have become very strong. That's the whole idea, tempering of steel. So it's tempering of our consciousness.
Yes, Prabhu. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Leela Mai Rukmini Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Yes, Mataji.
Am I audible?
Yes.
Prabhu, I just wanted to understand when Keshav Maharaj invited Prabhupada to speak on the occasion of his taking sannyas. He says clearly that the common language was Hindi, but however, Prabhupada felt that he should speak in English. Can you just clarify why like that? Just because he wanted to preach in English, is it?
No, because that is the mandate given by Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, right? He should preach in English speaking language. That's the reason why he's taking sannyas, no? He's not taking sannyas to prove anything, right? He's taking sannyas to preach in English language. So he should begin that preaching right on the occasion of his sannyas initiation. That's why he's preferred to speak in English, because that is the mandate by Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. Because there are people who can understand that. It's not that nobody could understand. Is it okay, Matli?
Okay. So the first speech, he wanted to make it in the language that his Guru Maharaj wanted him to.
Yes.
Preach in like that.
Yes.
Okay.
The very significant of sannyas.
This being normally.
Pardon?
Sorry, Prabhu, please you complete after that.
The very significance of sannyas for him was to preach in the English language. So what better occasion than the ceremony itself? When he was asked to speak anyway.
Right.
You said something else.
The other thing is, we normally hear it is Tridanda sannyas. So why is it said here that it is a danda made of 4 bamboo sticks, 4 bamboo rods?
What is it? I mean, from my understanding, I can check this. My understanding is that You have body, mind, words, and the fourth represents your own self. Surrendering your own self. There's body, mind, and words, right?
Normally,
Yeah. Atma Samarpan.
yes, Prabhu, but normally we
Correct.
hear it is only 3 danda, no?
Correct. That's why I said I'll clarify because I've also heard this sometimes about this 4. That's why I immediately replied that refers to the Atma itself. But anyway, I'll have to clarify what is the origin of this. I'll have to clarify. I only heard it like that. Yeah.
Okay, Prabhu.
Sure.
Thank you. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
If you could, I think if you could just post that question on the Telegram group, then I'll not forget. Otherwise, I may forget actually. Just post it on the Telegram.
Will do, Prabhu.
Oh, sure. Okay. Sailesh Govindya Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Can you hear me?
Yes, Prabhu.
Sorry, thank you for a wonderful class. So Prabhu, I have a question. It's a little in line with Mataji's question earlier about failures and reading failures, etc. So I have, there's a line between understanding Krishna trying to give us indications that we should not continue doing something, and Krishna testing to see our resilience. How do we know which it is? How do we know that the messages are not Krishna not saying, look, I don't want you to do this anymore after repeated failures, that Krishna is sending a signal that he does not want me to do this. I should do something else. And reading it as a message that we should continue steadfastness. So is it foolish to continue hitting our head against the wall, or is it sensible to see that as Krishna's message? Where's the line? How do we differentiate?
Okay. So here in this case, in Srila Prabhupada's case, it was a direct instruction of his Guru Maharaj. So there is no other way a disciple has to live and die for the sake of following the instruction of the Guru. So that instruction was not changed by Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. He gave it. So until he dies, he would do it. That is Prabhupada's spirit. That until he has breath, life breath, he would try to execute the order of his Guru. So in our lives, if we have the order of the Guru, and if we are having difficulties, obviously we can report what is going on, but we don't have the right to ask to change the instruction unless the spiritual master himself changes the instruction. Or, it's not that in all cases the spiritual master instructs. It could also be superior Vaishnavas.
Sorry, perhaps you misunderstood my question, Prabhuji. The question wasn't regarding the instructions. Of course, I understand the instruction. That's Prabhupada's resilience. But I'm saying generally, from our perspective in life, how do we know and learn when we don't have direct instructions, but we are attempting service, or we're attempting certain devotional practice which continuously gets hindered, i.e. if we're trying to do something as an offering, but that's not succeeding, do we continue? Or do we read it and say, actually, that's something Krishna does not want me to do, let me try something different. So, without having specific and direct instructions, because not all of us have direct instructions as clearly as Prabhupada did. Most of us are fumbling our way through life, trying to practice devotional practice without having specific direct instructions from our Guruji.
Okay, so this is an interesting question. In my life, I follow a certain principle. I don't do anything in my life without an instruction. It need not be the instruction of my Guru. It could be an instruction of a superior Vaishnava whom I listen to. So I don't do anything till now. That's how I've been leading my life. Of course, when I didn't do that at some point, when I was trying to figure out things on my own, things went haywire. But so it does not have to be necessarily the Guru sometimes. It can be others also. So, like for example, I'll give a very simple example. Very, very simple. I don't know if I said this in this class before or not. When my first son was born, and he was only 4 months old. At that point, I had to decide whether to attend my sister-in-law's wedding, which was in Bangalore, and I had to travel from Mayapur. Now the child is born in Mayapur. It's really cold. He's only 3 months. End of September, October. Okay, he was only 3 months old actually, just 3 months old. And should I travel with such a small baby in winter to attend a marriage? I think I had certain considerations there. I didn't know what to do. So, and my Guru Maharaj was not in Mayapur at that point in time. So, and it was difficult to get an answer from him because the interval was very short. I was not sure if I'll get a reply or not. So then what I did was, I was thinking what to do, how to solve this problem. I need to get an answer. What is the right thing to do currently? Should I stay back or not? My mind was inclined to stay back, but I was not sure. So what I did was that I went to the temple. So when I went to the temple, I saw Hanumat Prekshak Maharaj is chanting there. And I'm inspired by him in different ways. So I liked him. So I don't know him much. I don't have a relationship with him. I went to Maharaj and asked Maharaj, I have a question that can you please help me? So then I presented the question to him. But while presenting the question to him, it was very clear to me. Whatever he says, I would accept it. I'm not going to listen to what my mind is going to say after that. So whatever he said, I did it. He said, go ahead. I said, okay, I'll go. And then I went. So like that, I'm just giving a very simple example. It does not necessarily have to be people whom we have a relationship with, but for everything that we do, if we at least have someone superior, someone more mature, more wise than us, then it would help. At least you can get back to the person and say, you told me this and I'm trying this, it's not working. What do you think about it? So it is always possible to find superior Vaishnavas to whom we can just at least ask them, I mean, what should I do? And if you at least do on that, then we are no more in that dilemma of whether it's the right thing to do or not. I mean, I know that this may sound a little bit, I don't know how to put it, little bit difficult. Okay, but what I follow is very simple. Like the principle of the Guru being present in every living being, So like we'll see later on that how Prabhupada starts printing books instead of magazines. When a military officer tells him magazines people are going to throw, but then when he hears the magazines people are going to throw, books people will retain. But when he hears that instruction, he immediately knows that this is my Guru Maharaj instructing through this person. So like that, I mean, if the reality is that all Vaishnavas who surround us are all manifestation of Prabhupada's mercy. So all of them are. And so in the absence of our own spiritual master or our own immediate superior not being able to tell us what to do, we still have Vaishnavas around. Someone will be able to tell us because I mean, if nobody is available, then what to do? Then of course you have to start doing something. You cannot not do something. You do whatever is according to your discretion. But very soon you will get a chance to consult with someone, right? So why not consult at that point at least? Is it okay? Or I don't know if I answered it clearly.
Yes, Prabhu, thank you.
I see. For me, the delay. I mean, I know there is one problem with what I said, because it is not, because there is this concept of authority being perfect and the instruction being perfect. Now, the two things are not necessarily related. Generally they are, but not necessarily related. Like if I have read Prabhupada's teachings, and if I receive an instruction from a superior which is in line with the teachings, even if that superior is not following it, even if he is inconsistent, but if he gives me an instruction which is in line with Prabhupada's teachings, I'm still duty bound to follow it. That is the right thing for me to do. Like for example, let's say sometimes it's not very uncommon that temple residents or temple members have problems with temple presidents. So sometimes they'll say, oh, my temple president, I can't relate to him. Okay, you may not be able to relate to him. That's fine. I'm not talking you means not you, Shailesh. I'm just saying generally that you may not be able to relate to him, but that does not mean the instruction that he's giving is wrong. He may be giving a right instruction. So what if he's not ideal? So what if he's not someone whom you can relate to fully? But it is an authority structure which Prabhupada has created. So I mean, just like in the military, you have, or in defense forces, you have your immediate commanders. Then you have those above them. As long as the commander is not giving an instruction against your own country, he is not telling kill your own countrymen. As long as he doesn't give that instruction, whatever else instruction he gives, as long as it does not break the rules of military training that you have received, you're duty bound to follow it. The government is only going to see whether you followed whether you willfully followed a lawful command. Whether you willfully followed a lawful command. That is how they observe. Was it a lawful command? Yes. Whether it is the best command is not the real issue there. It may not have been the best command, but was it a lawful command? That is how Krishna looks at things also. Was it a lawful command? That's the only thing. If it is not a lawful command, then what are you doing? Haven't you read Prabhupada's books? If it was not a lawful command, if he tells, kill your own, if he says commit offenses to devotees in our case, what kind of instruction is that? So again, it's unlawful from the point of Krishna consciousness. But as long as it is lawful, does not have to be the best. Does not have to be the best instruction for us or for the situation. But as long as it is lawful, we are duty bound to follow it. So Krishna will only see whether you have done the lawful thing or not. Willingly have we followed the lawful command. So even if the authority is imperfect, it doesn't matter. Is it okay? Shailesh, go through.
Yes, Prabhu, it's a complex area because I constantly struggle with trying to read messages, but yes, your answer makes sense. So thank you. I won't take up any more time today. Maybe another day.
Usually in those circumstances, one has to be really taking shelter of Prabhupada's books, because at least one will be able to detect then if some instruction is against his teachings or not. In situations where the authority is not perfect, we are in deeper trouble than normal. So those circumstances, we have to be really careful that we understood Prabhupada's teachings properly, because we may end up receiving an instruction which is against his teaching, so which we have to be careful. But as long as it is not, then what to do? Even if he may not be attending Mangalarti or whatever, and he tells you to attend Mangalarti, we have to do it. Or even if he's not doing something, but if he instructs us in a lawful manner, we still have to do it. So like that. Anyway, I think as you said, it's complex and depends on each individual circumstances, but I'm just speaking about the principle here.
Thank you.
Okay. Murli Govind Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Acintya Caitanya Prabhu, Dandat Pranam.
Hare Krishna.
It's a wonderful class, Prabhuji. Every time when I hear your class, spontaneously I get a lot of eagerness and enthusiasm, Prabhuji. But to be frank with you, this how to keep this enthusiasm forever? Because due to some various commitments and services, I am not able to do that minimum reading as prescribed by Prabhupada also. Many times I contemplate whether I should leave all these courses, I should read only Prabhupada books, or whether I should focus more on the services assigned to me. A lot of introspection is going on these days. So even I left Bhakti Vaibhava course also. I joined there, but I could not do justice there also. So I left it. Even now also, I have this feeling, Prabhuji. But at the same time, I'm not able to give up these classes. PARAMPARＡ-VAIBHAVA, you and other Prabhuji is also teaching every Thursday and Sunday. So this gives a lot of encouragement, eagerness, and I feel at the same time some purification process is also happening in the heart. So how to balance this, Prabhuji? Please kindly guide me.
Yeah. See, the sum and substance of all instructions of Srila Prabhupada, as Prabhupada mentions in the Nectar of Devotion, always remember Krishna, never forget Krishna. Okay?
Yes, Prabhu.
So, and Rupa Goswami says, if you can purchase greed, okay, eagerness is one level, but greed is a higher level of eagerness. Okay? So, if you can purchase that greed anywhere in the market at any price, whatever be the price, purchase it. That's what he says, So we should always, what is it? Of course, here, I'm a little bit in an uncomfortable situation, but I'm just talking about the principles. But I can't, at the same time, in the name of being uncomfortable, I cannot refrain from speaking the truth. So the truth is that if you find that attending the classes gives you enthusiasm, it would be definitely unwise to give it up, right? Because Rupa Goswami is saying at any price, please purchase it. So because that is what sustains our life, right? So obviously, for you, it definitely means that you should not give those classes. Of course, here in this context, it happens to be these classes. But in general, the principle is wherever you're getting enthusiasm to practice Krishna consciousness, we should not be expected to give it up. Enthusiasm means enthusiasm coming from genuine Krishna consciousness. I'm not talking about enthusiasm. Somebody's doing some project and you feel very nice with the speaker, the way he's speaking. It's not like that. But it should actually purify the heart and impel you to practice more Krishna consciousness. That's very important. But before I get into, I mean, that's just a general answer, but specifically, Prabhupada has given us a formula. Yes, Prabhupada has given us a formula. And if we stick with that formula, then definitely enthusiasm it'll be hard for enthusiasm to go away if you follow the basic formula, which is that, I don't know your situation, but Prabhupada very clearly insisted that our enthusiasm in Krishna consciousness comes from the morning program. Of course, enthusiasm comes from chanting. I'm not saying no, but in that formula is designed in such a manner that you cannot, it'll make you helplessly enthusiastic. Whether you like it or not, if you just attend it, that's it. Of course, not in the improper mood. If you think it's a burden and all, that's different. But
yes,
if you attend it with the proper mood, you will definitely remain enthusiastic. I don't know what your circumstances are. Let's say you are working at a job till late at night, but whenever you get up as early as possible that you can, sing the Samsara prayers, sing the Tulsi Arti prayers, sing the Guru Puja prayers, do whatever you can.
Yeah, yes, Prabhuji. I'm a retired person. I don't have those official timings and all. There is no problem as such. But I just wanted to be very frank with you, Prabhuji, because sometimes I feel this Trikarana Suddhi, Manasa Vacha Karmana, that is not happening. That is my self-introspection. Because if flickering mind is saying something to you, then if you are listening to it, then you're over, nothing you can do, because your spiritual progress also will be like that only. It will go very slowly. So is it because of that, with that flickering mind, these kind of thoughts are coming? Even I do Mangalarati, first priority is my chanting. I will do the japa. After completion of japa, I will do the Mangalarati. Then that series up to Sishtastakam. Then after that, 10 offenses. All these things I will do, Prabhuji.
Where are you based? Before you answer, where are you based?
I am in Visakhapatnam, Prabhu, Andhra Pradesh.
Okay, all right, go ahead.
So I don't know, these thoughts are coming these days like a flood, and they're not keeping me very focused on these aspects of book reading, especially. I am worried about book reading. Even our Padmanayan Prabhu also has told us in the Bhakti Sastri course that you should read Bhagavatam every day. Let what may come, whatever is the situation, you have to read. At least I am ensuring that at least 2 pages or 3 pages are like 10 or 15 verses per day with that word-to-word meaning, translation and purport. I have been striving for it, Prabhuji.
Okay, now, first of all, when we say the morning program, Prabhupada's prescription is you attend the morning program in the association of devotees, not alone. Morning program means in the association of devotees. That's number one. Okay. Number one, if you cannot do that, then at least today, the world being a global village due to the internet, you can actually attend the morning program, full morning program on Mayapur TV or other channels also. Full morning program is available. In fact, you may be surprised to know that, he's no longer present with us on the planet. There is one Prema Niketan Prabhu, So
I heard Prabhu, yes.
Yeah, he was in Delhi, disciple of His Grace Vaisheshika Prabhu. So this Prema Niketan Prabhu, every day without fail, he would from the beginning of Mangalarati till the end of Mangalarati, he would give the announcements also, and then he would chant. He would attend the full Darshanarati, hear the full Bhagavatam class. Then he would have his prasadam. So he was leading a life as good as a temple life. Just that, he had difficulty going to the temple because he was living 10-15 kilometers away from the temple, and he was retired also. But he made it a point to attend the full morning program, and he was very enthusiastic. He was so enthusiastic, he would chant 64 rounds every day. So yeah. So the point is that when we say bhakti, it has to be practiced in the association of devotees. If both of this is not possible, then what can be done? You have to practice alone. But neither you can be physically, neither you can associate through the net. Then you have to do it alone. But I mean, Krishna also says that Abhyasena Kaunteya. But first of all, before all of that, you need to have everything stems from Shraddha. Shraddha.
Yes.
Please remember this, Shraddha, faith. The question really is, do you have faith? I'm not asking you. I'm not talking, say, you means you. I'm just generally, okay, let me put it like, do we have faith that the chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra, the practice of Krishna consciousness is millions and billions of times, it has got more potency than the urges of the mind? I mean, of course, the urges of the mind may overwhelm us. I know. I mean, for practicing devotees, the urges of the mind may be difficult. But the moment we have faith that the process of Krishna, the holy names of Krishna, Nija Sarva Shakti, all of Krishna's Shakti, it's a full manifestation of Krishna's Shakti, the holy name. Do we have that faith that the troubles of the mind can become insignificant when we are chanting and when we take up to the process of chanting sincerely? That with that faith, if you chant, you can see what difference it brings to your consciousness.
Oh, okay, Prabhuji. Thank you so much. I will put extra endeavor as you suggested, Prabhuji. That is very kind of you, actually. So I have been contemplating for so many months. So I thought I will ask Prabhuji, because today's topic is also very nice. Even instantly, Sailesh Govindra Prabhu and Mataji also asked a similar question only. So I thought, okay, it will be appropriate if I ask this question and get some kind of advice from you. Thank you so much, Prabhuji. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Prem Gaurasundar Prabhu. Actually, we are over time now. I have time. I'll finish till the questions are over. Those of you who would like to leave can leave.
Yeah, just 1 point, 2 points. One is I have sent you that photo. You are looking for the photo of Prabhupada's sannyas. I sent it on your WhatsApp. I don't know if you can project it on Zoom and we can see it.
I think I'll do that in the next class because that will take some time.
And my second point was the final takeaways from today's class, Prabhuji, practical applications.
Yeah, before I go on to that, there's one more question which Vishnu and then Mataji wanted to do. I asked her to wait till the last. So could you, Mataji, you can ask your question now.
Prabhuji, I got the answer in your earlier explanations. Thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Okay, sure.
So kind of you. Thanks, Prabhuji.
Okay. So, I mean, some of the takeaways from today's class are that Prabhupada never at any point in time resigned to something, resigned to failure. He would try to come up with newer ways. Okay, now let me go to Kanpur. Now let me go to Bombay. I mean, so although Bombay had failed before, okay, now why not this way? So you can see clearly, this is the principle of Asha Bandha, hoping against hope. Although there is no hope there, so again, he's thinking, no, I'll still do it. I'll try something now. So this is called hoping against hope. So which is a characteristic of Bhava Bhakti and Prema Bhakti. So Prabhupada is clearly seated on that platform. We need to aspire to come to that platform, that of hoping against hope. And so that's something which is very clearly visible in today's this thing, that there is Krishna consciousness means hope. There's no situation in Krishna consciousness which is hopeless. This we need to be very clear about. There's nothing, absolutely nothing which is hopeless. No matter what mess we may be in, it is a hopeful situation. Of course, we may have gotten into ourselves in a mess due to our inattention or whatever, but still, even in that situation, if one can take shelter of Krishna, it is still hopeful. So this is the only process where there is absolutely no situation where there is hopelessness. Every situation there is hope. Every situation there is hope. There is hope. There is no hopelessness in Krishna consciousness. That is something clearly exemplified by Prabhupada's this thing. That so just like Prabhupada did, I mean, everywhere throughout, even though he's saying I'm crying in the wilderness, or all those things he's writing, but nevertheless, you can see he is the hope. No, I may be struggling, but I will still go on with my Krishna. I will keep on trying. So that hope against hope is very, very clearly visible in these in these episodes, in these anecdotes that we're going through, this phase of Prabhupada's life. And I mean, this particular phase is very rich and dense. You can see so many things happening, and Prabhupada in action, through all these various difficulties. And And one other thing which I wanted to mention was that Prabhupada is not very, I don't know how to put it. His spiritual master, actually, if you just imagine what the Gaudiya Math was during the glorious days of Bhakti, it was a very, I mean, unbelievable. It's a revolutionary kind of an organization with so much activity. And the whole thing had completely collapsed to something petty, completely petty. And Prabhupada had seen the glorious days, the days of glory of the Gaudiya Math, and it had collapsed completely. But Prabhupada went on with his life. He was not like, oh, what happened to my spiritual master's mission, and how can I do it all alone? And he's not depressed. So Prabhupada once said this, like he said, like when you are sitting, going in a boat, sometimes the people sitting with you may be third class, fourth class. What have you got to do with it? You sit tightly in the boat and cross the river, he says. So sometimes we may feel overwhelmed by different problems that we face in our movement or whatever it may be. But how does it matter? How does it matter whether everything is right or wrong with the Krishna consciousness? Whatever is right is right. Whatever is wrong is wrong. How does that even matter, actually? What really matters is that can we execute the instructions that Prabhupada has given us? That's it. So we should simply be focused on that. We should not be overwhelmed by our observations of what are right and what is wrong in the movement. These things will go on. But we need to be very focused on fulfilling our purpose of human life and giving that to others, making our own life perfect and giving it to others. And regarding this, I already spoke a little bit on that verse. So I think that's, and you also asked some questions on that about the Vrindavan Bhajan. So I don't need to re-summarize that again. Already have done that. Is it okay?
Yeah.
Murli Govind Prabhu, is your hand still raised, or is it a new question?
No, Prabhuji, I have forgotten to put down it. I'm sorry. But anyway, these takeaways also are so wonderful, Prabhuji. Each and everything has got a very profound essence in that.
See, what do you call it? I want to share something very openly, okay? Which is, personally, I'm not speaking this out of some humility or something like that. I'm just talking just literal fact. It is not that I have been perfect all the time. It is not that I'm ideal in every way. I'm not these things. But I have, from the very first day that I took to Krishna consciousness till this very day, one thing has not changed. I have absolute faith in Prabhupada. If he says something and if we just do it, our life will become successful. And I've seen it, that no matter what the difficulties are, no matter what, you will progress. There's no doubt absolutely whatsoever. If you have that faith, yes, that's why it says that one who has absolute faith in Krishna and the Guru, all the purports of the Vedic scriptures are revealed. So that is our only thing which we can really do. Like if you look at the success of the Krishna consciousness movement, Prabhupada, when he brought his Western disciples to India, he was criticized in various ways by his god brothers and others. Your Western disciples don't know this, they don't know that, and all kinds of things. But Prabhupada said, whatever may be their deficiencies, they have one good quality. They have absolute faith in what I say. That's it. So this is the only asset that we can ever have. And once we lose that asset, everything is finished. So this is something that you really need to be conscious about. And if we have that asset, everything will become all right. We will be able to attain the ultimate goal of life. Okay, so I think we'll stop there for today. Resume next week.